This is the Swarm and Shoot football show with me, Manny Matsakis, as we kick off season 2. We've been fortunate because we've had a few good interviews. We bring Lynn Groll on here, and he's able to interview some of our players. And we've got a lot coming up in this upcoming season. And this Swarm and Shoot football show is brought to you by Big B Coffee, which I've got right here. And it's right across campus here on North Clinton Street. Get the finest coffee beverages in Defiance, as well as great pastries and breakfast sandwiches to start off your day. And for most of us, we also get a pick-me-up in the afternoon by heading across the street to see Sue and everybody over at Big B Coffee. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, BSN Sports. Rob Held, Jim Garris, and the crew over here, the sales team, are the professionals that you definitely need to get in touch with to get your gear. All the DC gear. If you're a high school program out there listening to this, get in touch with these guys and they will help you out. They do a fantastic job with high schools, colleges, businesses in the area. Can get whatever type of apparel they need customized just for their business. So I know Rob does a great job for us. Jim is our rep that I see virtually every week of the year, and it's outstanding customer service. All right, welcome. We're back here to get everything started with training camp. Lynn Groll, our regularly featured host, is basically how we handle this right now. And so how's it going, Lynn?
It's going good. It's we're getting some brutal weather coming our way, Coach. I'm going to have to check in on your plans for next week and all that good stuff and some other things that are going around the program right now.
Yeah, great. Well, we do have some weather coming.
We do.
But, that's okay. But the good thing is we just started, training camp out on the field. Terry Raines has done a good job getting everything cleared out there. I think Monday and Tuesday he was out there on Sunday just starting to clear the snow so we could get out on the field for our first practice on Tuesday.
Yeah. Take me through kind of how things have gone since you've started up here, positives, negatives. Take me through the first few days here of camp and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I'd say everything's positive. The thing is with our players right now, we had to set the expectations that things will be adjusting and not as consistent as normal because there's all types of distractions that are going to show up and changes and there's quite a few of those things. But that's what the teams back in the fall were dealing with. Fortunately, we know a lot more about the way COVID is, how to deal with COVID from, all fall, watching those other programs do it. So we've taken some of that insight and prepared with contingency plans so we can get the most out of our team as we get ready for a February 27th opener at Franklin.
Fitness-wise, compare this spring to a traditional fall season where these kids are off for the entire summer before you get them back. You've had them. You had you've had a couple weeks with them already, and obviously last fall you were able to do some weight stuff and conditioning and that sort of thing. Is it better in that aspect where the kids maybe are a little further along than what they would be in, say, in August?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, part of it is, in the fall we're dealing with the adversity that wasn't normally there. So the practice side of it was great in the month of November. The weightlifting thing has still been a struggle because we can't get a whole team lifted in the size of the weight room we have because of the protocol, how many people are allowed in the room. So we've had to do a lot of functional training, different types of things like a lot of outdoor training. Like the last 2 weeks, we went through conditioning stations, but everything's been outside. We have not gone inside once, even in that weather. And but we were getting them ready to play football, as opposed to normally, you might be this time of year you would normally be like doing some heavier lifts and squats and stuff. but that would have been an off season this time of year. But since this is in season, you had to really watch that because we can't do heavy squats because, you're playing a game pretty soon. So it's everything we're doing is to get the most out of their bodies through a full range of motion, everything from yoga type stuff to bursts of agilities and speed development, those kind of things is what we've had to do. And what's good is they got sore. The last 2 weeks before we started, their bodies were sore. We were moving them. It was intense. It was a 45-minute workout nonstop. And I think that gets them ready more for football. Urban Meyer used to do mat drills and stuff at this time of year. Well, that's where we went. A lot of mat drills, up, downs, and, all that, which now they're ready to at least handle the game, in a collision sport.
Conference-wise, how do you kind of see the conference and maybe some of the coaches you've talked through the conference? And I assume they're doing a preseason poll of some kind at some point here in the next month or so.
Yeah. What I've gauged, because we've had one meeting with the HCAC head coaches, and Jay Jones, our commissioner. And just as I see it, we see everybody's dealing with it, adversity and so forth. And I think it's going there was nothing really negative from any coach like, oh, I can't do this. So I think everybody is up to speed. Some teams have had more practices back in the fall than others. Every college is different with what they let you do. I figure we're sort of in the middle of the pack there. And some teams actually played games, like Manchester and Bluffton were able to play games, which, we weren't able to do that. But I'm just grateful for the opportunity we had with that. So I would say in our league right now, with Hanover being the defending champions, a lot of seniors, they would be the team that would be picked at the top of this. But you don't know. There's a lot of unknowns in this thing because there's a bunch of guys that were recruited that if they developed in the fall, they're going to be a lot better than typical freshmen, which is what, that's where Franklin is going to be because the new coaching staff brought guys in. I know Manchester had a banner recruiting year, Nate Jensen and those guys. And I haven't heard anybody from a football perspective struggle in the recruiting process because, football is one of those sports that if you cast a big enough net and you work diligently, you can do pretty good with your numbers. The key is how the quality of those guys and how game ready, season ready those guys can get as freshmen. Because for us, I think it'll be better than the past because the players have had the ones that were here in the fall had a chance to develop a bit more than they would have in 2 weeks of training camp.
Yeah. Roster size, and I think we touched on this the last time we talked, in the 90s or so is what you're still kind of expecting now that things are rolling along. Yeah,
that's where we're at right now. And, the thing is, that's your roster size. But then there's the deal like, it's not like we're COVID testing, so we didn't have a big rash of positives or anything like that. But where we got hit is through contact tracing. Somebody's girlfriend got it, or they were trying to do another sport in the winter, which we have nixed a lot of that now because we're trying to create our own bubble. And because then that knocked out 18 guys, something like that. So we've got to watch it. I mean, we're masked up all the time. Indoors, we're masked up in practice unless they got their helmets on. A lot of them even mask up with their helmets on. So we are very, very careful because you get one positive test, you don't know who was hanging out with that person, even though we have structured our workouts where we're not near anybody. There's no contact at all. And being an outdoor sport, we're fortunate where, you do this in basketball or wrestling, the whole team shut down, and that has happened here.
Tackling wise, I want to ask you about that with a lot of the protocols in place. How do you get the contact aspect into your practice with some of the protocols that are in place?
Well, part of it is we try to use the big dummies, tackle those, track guys so defensively, teach them to get in position, certain drills that take them up to that point. And the plan is that as we get through training camp, and we have hit, the word's not positive COVID test. It's like enough negatives that say, hey, we've got a nice bubble with the team. Then we'll start to engage a little bit more in tackling of, we'll exchange scouts. And those scout team guys will go through and work that. Because you're right, tackling is probably the biggest issue. That is what I noticed back in the fall. I know my brother at Kentucky told me in their first couple games they have great defense, but they weren't tackling very well because they struggled to practice it, and so we've learned from them, and now we are putting together some tackling drills to teach it and work through it. A lot of eye focus and so forth, where when it comes time to do the drills, they should be a little further along in the process. So we won't be doing a lot of contact here in the first 3 weeks of training camp as far as physical tackling. But I think that just being mentally alert and doing your drills properly before you tackle will help us out. And I think everyone's dealing with that in the conference right now.
Mm-hmm. Is it safe to assume, just from an outsider's perspective, that maybe the offenses will be a little bit ahead of the defenses to start the season because of that?
It depends on the type of offense. I would say this, that the offenses that are simpler, that can get reps out there, will be better off. The more complicated offense where you've got multiple reads and you're trying to throw the ball and, you're doing that, may still struggle. So I've been just mentally alert to how much we're putting in. My plan is let's put a few, if this is the whole offense, let's look at our personnel. What can we do well? And then I've taken the offense and reduced it by maybe 40%. Say, all right, here's what we're going to hang our hat on for a while. And then we'll, as we need it, we'll add stuff throughout the spring season, week by week. Hey, let's add this play. Let's add this concept. So we can at least execute it, because mental errors are what's going to kill you on offense. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt. So I think that could be the case, but I also think it's the same on defense. The simpler your system, the more adjustable the system is, I think that will benefit people. So it's still about blocking, tackling, and being able to play fast. And that has been our emphasis as a coaching staff, to get that point across, not to have a kid think too much when they're out there playing, because there are some things that might change as like on a Thursday night when you get your COVID tests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even who you might play on the weekend could change.
Right.
Yeah.
How much have you picked, and you mentioned your brother at Kentucky, how much have you picked the brain of maybe some of your Division I connections that had their seasons already, and kind of some things that they went through last fall that now maybe you can use this spring?
A lot. I mean, I would say during the month of December and early in January, I was just calling people and getting like their protocols. What are they doing? How do they set their locker rooms up? What do they, what do you think? If you had to do it again, what would you have done? Those types of things. I mean, literally half a dozen guys around the country. I've talked to, medical people, coaches, how they dealt with their installations and those types of things. And then, when we got everybody back in January as a staff, the first couple of weeks before the players got back, we met on all this stuff. And then I just gave them, well, here's what I got. Let's punch some holes in this thing and find out what works best for us. We're fortunate. We've got access to, some really good people that are willing to share information.
Yeah. I want to ask you about travel rosters are always, trimmed down for your normal rosters. Are they talking about making them even more limited with COVID going on? I don't know if that has been discussed around Division III or what you know about that.
Conference-wide, I mean, it's a whole range of things. I'm hearing like there's one team in the conference that says, well, you normally take 2 buses to a game.
Right.
When I'm just blatantly saying, we're going to take 3 or 4. So budgetarily, they're set up to go take the typical roster size. They want to travel 80 people. They're just taking more buses. So they're just paying more to the bus company and all that, and meals and all that, because they know that it's about retention. So you want players to be able to travel and possibly get in, which will help special teams quite a bit for the couple teams that are traveling bigger bus size, more buses. So, and that is what I'm noticing around maybe half the schools right now, because you can only put about 24 guys on a bus where normally you could have almost 50. So you can't have anybody sitting next to each other. Obviously, they're masked up in there, but they've got to go alternate seat, crossways. Nobody can be next to each other on a bus, because when you get there, if somebody tests positive, boom, contact trace.
Yeah.
There might be a last-minute test on something that, now that could blow the whole – you could be in warm-ups and the game is canceled. So that's the concern by everybody. So I think the travel rosters range based on how – a college decides how many to travel, how they're going to do it, So there might be something for maybe take more guys. If it's a closer game, I may just get in the car and drive, and we'll have minimal coaches on the bus, or different coaches can drive and all that. Then that way we can get more players on the bus, to help us out. But it's all going to depend on Thursday night. When we get the results of the COVID test on Wednesday, how many guys are going to be able to go? Because, it's contact tracing or positives can eliminate, what happens if you lose your starting quarterback or both of them or 2 O-linemen. Those are things that we've got plans for.
Depth-wise, you're probably well off enough there that you can sustain maybe some of those. God forbid that happens, but if it does, you have enough depth now that you could
finally
find. Yeah, you can get through it.
I would say yes, but knock on wood.
Yeah, you could. Your whole offensive line could get knocked out if.
You saw what happened to Ohio State and Michigan last year.
Right.
You could get decimated, and we had a bit of a positive issue testing result back in September, October-ish,
Right.
But when you look at the big picture, compare us to Michigan, we didn't have anything. It was minor, the numbers that they had to deal with up in Ann Arbor compared to us, but it's like here on campus, we're such a large percentage of the campus. That's the difference. So, for us to get, let's say, 10 or 20 COVID positive tests, Michigan in the percentage of the size
like
of
the
campus.
Of the campus or less than a percent.
Yeah, because it's just a bigger
like 15,
school.
20 probably almost you go that route.
Yeah, and so those were the concerns, I think, back in the fall. So I think our guys are smart enough, but then again, you don't know. Dr. Mankey put out a deal about about double masking now and trying to, the new strain that's come, from overseas and all this stuff. And, it is what it is. So we're just being smart.
Here comes the Arctic blast, Coach, next week. How are you going to deal with the sub-zero temperatures? Is the George going to be open for football season?
Well, we have alternate plans. We're fortunate because, Nate, the track coach, and I have had some meetings to how can you help us out? Because, other sports are going to be in there at night, because of our sheer number. We do have from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. before classes, which is not a good time to practice. Because that's usually our meeting times or some lifting or some of the conditioning stuff. So we do that, and then in the afternoon we would be doing a practice. But if it's 1 degree out or sub-zero, the plan will be that during track practice that we've set up a way where we can get probably 70% of the inside of the track, because the throwers will need a little bit of space there. And then we'll have a barrier up, and we can cycle a practice through there on that. And then I'm just trying to find some other creative ways to see if I can get some remnant turf or anything like that from anywhere we can find it. Somebody can donate it, and we can put something down, and guys can work on takeoffs and QB drops and stuff like that. So we can at least work the fundamental side of things. So that's the plan. I think track and us have a good working relationship now, and give us a chance to, at least have some positive things going forward in the sub-zero type temperature that we're here is about to come.
Yeah. What do you work on when you're indoors? Is it more formations, fundamental stuff? Take me through that from a coaching aspect.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking a lot of walkthroughs, talk-throughs. If you can get a piece of like rug or turf to put down that guys can move a little bit on, because you can do things like O-line, D-line work. We pad them up and everything, and we'll have the ability to do some interior box work. The problem is in our offense, we're not only run the ball, we throw the ball. So throwing the ball can be a bit more difficult, where you don't want a receiver running a 18-yard route and then hitting a comeback and blowing his knee out or something, because that interior surface in the George right now is not made for that. High speed, change of direction, those kind of things. And so we may work like, okay, we know where the route is. Here's the quarterback. So if you can picture this, we make sure that, we get the tape measure out and how far it would be on a field, because there's no markings out there. And then we just say, all right, take your drop, boom, boom, boom. And then we put the receiver at the end of his route, and he just finishes a route. He's not going to get to the speed that he normally would be. And then we just got to get the internal clock of the quarterback working. Like, okay, this is when he would be there. And then he knows not to throw it till that. So there's a whole lot of little nuances to working parts of a practice inside, which is what we really can do.
Yeah. Thanks, Coach, for catching up and filling us in on the latest. We'll be back next week.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll get a training camp report for everybody out there as we see how these guys come along and where they are. And we're excited, sub-zero or not, to be playing football. And I'm really proud of our coaches, our players, because they're masking up, they're taking care of each other. And, I feel like we're working our way toward leading our campus in that regard.
Sounds good. Thanks, Coach.
Okay. I want to thank you for joining us on the Swarm and Shoot Football Show. If you're listening to this podcast, make sure to subscribe in iTunes. Give us a rating, comment on the show. If you'd like to get all kinds of updates, go to our website at swarmandshoot.com, where you will be up to date on all of our podcasts with audio and YouTube versions on there as well. See feature articles on our current players and alumni, along with updates of what's going on in the program. Take a minute and subscribe with your email to receive these regular alerts every time we update the website.